2 Samuel 23:20, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was a valiant man of Kabzeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 Ariels of Moab. He also went down and struck down a lion in a pit on a day when snow had fallen. And he struck down an Egyptian, a handsome man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but Benaiah went down to him with a staff and snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and won a name beside the 3 mighty men. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3, and David set him over his bodyguard.
Well, hello and welcome to the Kavod Family Podcast. This is Casey Wilson. We have Travis Shook, we have Danny Antoine, and we have not a guest, a brother, a dear friend, a man that has meant much to all of us, Cliff Graham. Hello, brother. How are you?
It is an honor to be here, guys. It really is. It's an honor to be here.
Well, this is the Kavod Family Podcast. If this is the first time you've ever come across us, Kavod, it's a word that means honor, it means weighty, it means glory, and we tied that to the word family. And the reason is we believe that if you get a hold of family and if you honor God with your life, as a man, it's not just the pursuit of manhood, it's the pursuit of my life for the sake of my family, for the sake of my peoples, for the sake of my county, and on and on and on. And so if you do that, if you bring your family into a place of glory and honor before the Lord, that you truly can restore your community, your home, your neighborhood, your town. And so that's what we're all about, and we talk about it all the time. And this podcast, this ministry has been largely influenced over the years by Cliff Graham, his Lion of War series books, not only the ministry, but the karate studio, the fitness center, about everything in our life for the last 10, 12-ish years, right? Something like that. Many things. I shouldn't say everything. I can't give you credit for everything.
You learned quickly I did not live up to the standard you had set. So
the status of the 3.
That's right. I did not attain.
Did not attain.
No.
So we're going to have some fun today, and we're just going to kind of banter about our past, our history, what we've, kind of what came to this relationship, and then really what's going forward. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Man. All right. Well, let's jump into this. Danny, tell me your background with Lion of War. How did you come across these books, Travis? And then maybe Cliff, you could chime in and tell us your background with these books.
Yeah, right.
Because that's really why people are listening right now.
Sounded like you just said that's why white people listen, right?
Is that what you heard?
He's always got to pull them out. There's a common theme here.
Listen, man, it's fun. You know what I mean? Everybody needs to calm down. Stop being so
we
sensitive out there,
man.
It's fun, man. Golly. But so, being at the karate school, obviously, I've been very fascinated with the samurais. The lifestyle, the whole culture of it. And so one night I was teaching my adult class, and I sensed from the father, like he was saying, the reason why you're so fascinated with the samurai is because you don't understand who David and his mighty men are. And I remember thinking to myself while I'm teaching, like, I know I read the story, like, what did I miss? And sometimes the way the father speaks to me, it's repetitive. And the thought just kept coming back to my mind. So that night we had a Bible study at my house, and my buddy of mine, JJ, shout out to you, brother. I get back to the house, and I'm like, dude, this is what happened while I was teaching class. And, this thought kept coming back to me. He said, man, have you ever read the Lion of War series? I'm like, no. He said, you've never read the Lion of War series? I said, no. He said, so the first book is Day of War, and it's about David and his mighty men. He said, I'm getting you that book. He said, Danny, you need to read this book. So I said, all right. So he gets me the book, and I tell you what, I read the book, and upon completing that book, I don't even think I was finished with it yet. Travis, my son, was in Michigan at the time in the Coast Guard, and I called him immediately, and I said, yo, you and Declan's my other son, I said, you and Declan need to get these books, read them immediately, then call me back and tell me what your thoughts are, because this is epic. And that really was the start of it for me, because I identify with so much from the opening scene, with Benaiah. I mean, when I read the opening scene, I was like, oh, I'm all in, man. Yeah. This is going to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm all in, and so reading through it and just understanding, like, just the link of that with combat, fighting, the martial arts, the samurai's lifestyle, but realizing these guys, man, these guys are on a whole nother level. And you don't really read of anybody else, I feel like, in the Bible that did what these guys did. And you look at it, David gets this band of misfits. These dudes were like he scraped the bottom of the barrel to get these guys, mercenaries, rape, murderers, thieves, just the bottom of the barrel. And it's a beautiful story to see, like, when the right leader shows up, he can take the hardest men, the worst of them, and, just not only get them to unite, change these men, and together what they get to accomplish in this story is beyond understanding. So that was a start of it for me, and I'd call Travis like, yo, something's going to happen in this. We need to bring men back to this, because that was at a time also we talked so much about just the passivity of men, that are around. It's like everything was just so soft. It's like, I'm teaching, my classes. In the beginning when I was first taking karate, it's like if there was one person in the class who'd never been in the fight, it was like, you look at him like you're alien, like, where you been? And it's like at that current time when I read this book, it was such a different thing. I had no one in my entire adult class who had ever been in a street fight. And it was like so weird to me. I'm like, golly, so nobody's ever punched you in the face? Just because they mad. You never got in a fight, just hanging out with your boys. Y'all playing basketball, you get mad. Somebody hit you and you all go at it. And everybody's looking at me like I'm an alien. I'm like, golly, this is going to be rough, man. But that was a start of it for me. And it was also amazing upon reading the book, while I was reading the book, to go back, into the Word of God, go back to the actual passages and read and realize, like, these men existed for real. Yeah. One guy killed 800 men. One time, you can't even swing your arm 800 times. You know what I'm saying? Let alone kill 800 men in the same day, like in one war. Like, what comes over a man like that? Then you get to discover the covering. Like, when I first read about the covering in him, like, where's it, Lord?
all my charismatic friends love that part.
Yeah, buddy, man. But that was really the start of it, and started building so much of what we taught at the karate school based around these concepts, especially with the men and the dads. Trying to grab a hold of them. And the awesome thing to me is that you give these books. I should say, like, got a hold of these books maybe 12, 13 years ago. I can't tell you how many copies of this book that I have bought over the years to hand out, to different men. Yeah. And, and it's like and the response was never in the middle, right? They either like was just on fire, grabbed a hold of it, or they're looking at you like, yeah, it's cool. It's like, what?
That is so true.
What are you going through? What do you mean it's cool? Like, are you reading the same book? What's wrong with you? So that was the start of it. And then leading into Travis, and Travis called me, telling me he wants to move back down here and open a gym. I was like, oh, yes, do it.
What did that look like? How did you come to call your gym Kavod Fitness?
Read the books. Thought they were super cool. I was probably 20 and was the epitome of the opposite of all these men, because just didn't understand. My dad was provider, but didn't really instill a lot of this stuff in me. So in the military, just kind of figuring out how to skate by versus what my calling is. And so Lyd and I weren't happy with it. We're like, let's get out. And I remember calling you and you're like, what could you do every day for the rest of your life and love it? And I was like, talk about Jesus and work out, because I was 20 years old. And God's like, all right, well, let's do it. And I had read the books and had found the study book, the battle book with it, Cover Me. And it was Kavod, 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 and it's honor, it's weighty. There's not an English word for it. And I was like, Lyd never likes any of my ideas. I was like, let's get out and open a gym. She said, let's do it. I was like, okay. I said, let's call it Kavod. She goes, let's do it. And like, never likes my ideas, but like the branding and everything, I was like, sweet. And I said, the lion is in it with barbells. She said, done. I said, the Lion of Judah. She goes, done. And I was like, sweet. I was like, I'm 3 for 3. And then I go, okay. And the weapons, like the axe and the bow and the sword. And I said, but we'll put a barbell in the middle because that's like our weapon. She's like, done. And I was like, this is awesome. So we literally came back and God's like, I want you to give people a home that don't have a home, teach them family. And it's ultimately to paint that picture of me. And I had a picture of like my actual family. And God's like, I'm going to use you to restore the family. So I came back here, opened the gym, called it Kavod, everything like that. And the model and mission of the gym was create family, tell them who they were, identity, Jesus, love them. But then we started making the nonprofit, and we had 6 months of 6 a.m. meetings trying to figure out our mission statement. And the mission statement was restore the family, transform the community. And it took me into the first 20 podcasts to realize I was like, oh, whoa, you told me we were going to come back and restore family. We literally created a podcast, and that was our mission, to restore family. Yeah. So that was the why behind it all. And he made this little 3-minute trailer, and he's like, we need Kavod at the end. And my 20-year-old self was like, it's running through a field with a bow. I'm shooting stuff. I'm killing stuff. And that's what my 20-year-old brain understanding of it was. And then God just kind of showed what it looked like. And it's everything that we're teaching. It's get yourself right, serve God, lead your wife into it, lead your kids, have a business, lead a community into it. And it's just kind of branched out.
Yeah. When I first found these books, I was doing trim work with actually JJ. He was just helping me out doing some finish work on the cabin.
JJ strikes again.
Yeah, good man. And so he threw those books my way, about 10 years ago. And in fact, it's in the cabin that you're actually finishing up and writing the book Shamgar that you're producing right now, or that we're producing with you. And so that's where I found these books and read through them for the first time. That's where you're writing this new book, which is an awesome story we'll get into. But for me, it was all summed up. There's a line in 1 Samuel, and you guys all know the story. And David, he's going back and forth with the Philistines, but he's also going back and forth with his own men. It's not just this giant that has risen up. It's also the fear that's risen up inside the men, right? And there's this line in 1 Samuel 17:31. And it says, when the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fall because of him. Your servant will go and fight with the Philistines. And that line, let no man's heart fall because of him. And that's what those books meant to me. It was when you're looking at families, at the time, my wife and I had worked in ministry for, at that time, 12, 13 years. And, you're looking at families, and you're looking into the faces of husbands, and you're trying to see what is it that you're living for and fighting for and going after. What are you pursuing? What do your children mean to you? And you see this shadow that often hangs over a lot of families. And it all starts from the dad down. There's this cloud of fear, this cloud of distraction, this cloud of frustration, this cloud of he's just not happy with what he's created or what he's built or what his purpose and legacy is. He's almost separated the home and his family and children from everything else, business, even separated church. And to me, this verse is what brought it all together. How do you bring the purpose of God? How do you bring the broken, hearts of men that are clouded with fear? How do you bring the giants of the land that are in opposition to God's will? And how do you conquer that? And those books kind of, that's what they grabbed hold of, right?
It's powerful.
Even if you look at even the second book, if you open up this opening chapter of this second book, the prologue to this is incredible. Just the way that you wrote this, having the 3 mighty men stand there and put on a demonstration for the others, right? To show, this is how we do it. This is how we live. This is how we lead. And so that's what these books have always meant to me. It was the thing that came in and robbed a fearful heart, a complacent, apathetic heart, and gave him courage. And so, man, brother, I just want to thank you. You have provoked us in mighty good ways in our own lives.
I do want to say thank you to you too, because what these books in essence did for me, it really solidified how to leadership. It made it just really solid, and women, when my wife got a hold of this book, it's like there's an effect on women on this as well. So even though, yes, you can say that this is geared towards men, my wife and I, what God chose to do with the karate school was to teach us how to parent, basically a parentless generation. There was a time where there was a lot of single mothers that were bringing the kids into us, but then that changed rapidly to where even the mothers now had checked out, and now it's grandparents and great-grandparents that are raising the kids. So we spend a lot of time with these families and restoring these families and trying to bring this back. But it was awesome to watch as my wife grabbed a hold of this, what that meant to her. Her father, my father-in-law, I never had a chance to meet him, but he's a World War II vet, and this is a man who went to World War II in place of his brother, didn't want to let his brother go. So he went in his place and survived and came back. And so when I would hear her speak of him and I would hear my mother-in-law speak of him, it's like, wow, they just don't make them that way anymore, like these kind of men. So these books really, for me, solidified leadership, not just how to lead, but like I was already in a leadership role. It just made it very solid. You know, days where just everything's falling apart, you get to go back to these stories and jump back into the Word of God and just refill your well and just realize, like, this is it. There's no turning back. There's no, I can't do this. There's only go until the desired result. That's it. Yeah. So that's, you know, a good nutshell, you know, to say thank you for writing these, because that's how much it affected our lives, man.
Well, thank you. That was a lot. Very, very humbled by that, guys. Humbled is the word I got to keep coming back to. I feel deeply appreciative of that because, you know, when you set out to do something like that, you have no idea where it's going to go, who's going to read it, who's going to even care. When I started, I thought, well, my grandmother will be proud of me. That's what Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, do you want me to share a little bit where it came from?
Yeah, tell that story.
Yeah. So the germ of the idea for the series, for those who aren't familiar with it, this is the Braveheart gladiator treatment of the story of King David and his mighty men in the Old Testament. So there's always been a lot of David projects that have floated around, whether they're books or movies. I mean, David as a central figure, you're not going to find people who don't know who King David was. Yeah. But when you tell a group of people the phrase, King David, what do you know about him? They're going to say, David and Goliath. And the other half of them is going to say David and Bathsheba. And that's the only two things they know about David is David and Goliath, David and Bathsheba. And I always was hung up on that David and thing. Well, wasn't there more to this guy than just those two incidents? Yeah. And every single dramatization I had come across was focused entirely on David's conflicts with Saul. And I mean, it's rich stuff, so I see why that would be the case. David fighting Goliath, and then David and Bathsheba. There's these really intensely dramatic moments in his life that I think storytellers have zoned in on over the years, but I couldn't get over the idea that, but there's more in there of this guy's life. I mean, he's around for decades. He took a bunch of fledgling tribes that hated each other and built a mighty empire in one lifetime. I mean, that's a remarkable feat, so there has to be more to it than that. And so, you know, I was always a fan of reading that story, and I loved the Old Testament. Always had a desire to study it and read it, even from being a little kid. I just loved the Old Testament stories. And then my grandmother, who recently passed away, she one day told me, I was probably 13, 14 years old. She said, now remember, Cliff, David was a warrior first. That was the first thing God used him for. Like, he was a psalm writer, he was a singer, he was a worship leader. He's like, but if you look around the church nowadays in America, the only remnant you're going to get of David is that he was just kind of strumming his harp and singing songs all the time. Like, God used him as a warrior first. I mean, this is this, you know, frail Southern Belle, Mississippi grandmother, but she's just in my business about that. And so I never forgot that about her. And, you know, we would just talk about David and his life many, many times every time we were together. And I finally got to the point where I had a group of friends that I was close with, and then they would talk about stories of David and what about the mighty men, and then, you know, you look at 2 Samuel 23 and 1 Chronicles 11, and there's this list of the heroic deeds of the mighty men. And I remember I was a youth pastor at the time in my early 20s, and was teaching a group of boys at a ski retreat up in the north. We have this thing called snow. So,
we get a couple inches of that.
The town shuts down.
Yeah. Anyway, but this is out in the West, and I was youth pastor out there, and we were on a ski retreat, and I remember I had brought these teenage boys and teenage girls to this lodge, and it was a lot of fun. And in the evenings, we would do these sessions, and so I would teach about the story of David and the Old Testament figures, and the girls were always in tune. They always had their notepads out, and as you know, they're going to be listening, and they're more diligent students, and love the New Testament and the Gospels, and the boys are just checked out, staring at the ceiling, no idea they're just bored out of their mind. And so I said, okay, everybody, open up your Bibles to 2 Samuel 23, and I just read them what I read a minute ago,